World Domination Through Multiple Languages. I'm Thomas Fang. This is Paul Shreya. Today we're going to talk to you about the global market, what we've been doing, and how you guys can capitalize on this opportunity. So, yep. All right. So, our mission statement, bring the world together through play. How many people in this room have met somebody, business partner, good friend, through Roblox? Just about everybody. How many people have you met from a different country? That's more than I expected. So that's our mission, is to really connect users from the US, Japan, China, Korea, any country through your experiences. So you've probably seen this number a lot today. This is a huge milestone that we're all really proud of, and not something that we could have accomplished without you guys in this room. So let's dive a little more into this metric. So we have users all across the world. But did you know that 2/3 of our users are outside of North America? So this tells us that we're sitting on a huge opportunity right now to localize our content and to bring it throughout all the users in the world. So how do we do this? The world is a big place, 195 countries, 6,500 languages. So it's not going to be an easy task. So how are we going to do this? So we focus on 3 key metrics when we think about the global market: total population, how many people are in the country; total internet population, how many of those people have access and use the internet; and total gaming revenue, how many dollars do those people spend. So when we look at the global market, we like to segment it into the biggest, nearest opportunity. So when we looked at the top 10 countries, we found out that 34% of the total population reside in those top 10 countries. 43% of those people globally use the internet, and 80% of all the gaming dollars come from these top 10 countries. So we really have a really targeted approach when we think about how we're going to expand to the global market. So here are the top 10 markets by gaming revenue. Something that really stands out to me here is China. Huge opportunity when you look at population, internet population, and gaming revenue. Something else that pops out to me is 3 of these countries speak English. So we already have really good and high penetration in these markets. We're doing really well here. When you take the next 5 markets by gaming revenue, you get what we call our strategic markets. This is where we're really focusing our efforts to try to attack these user bases and try to get some of this gaming revenue for you guys. We're relatively lowly penetrated here, so when we think about this, we think about this as a really, really easily addressable market opportunity that we're all really excited about. In fact, with these 5 markets, you have access to 5x your audience and 2x your revenue. So what have we been doing here? Shreya will talk about this in more detail, so will Peter in the next session. But we've been partnering with devs to make sure that we are creating the right tools. We've been adding support for our top experiences. We've been launching dev community support, and we've been building localization and tools. And in these markets, since we've been focusing on them, we've been able to 6x engagement in Western Europe and 5x engagement in Japan, China, and Korea. Now I'm going to turn it over to Paul, who's going to talk to you guys a little bit more about the China opportunity.
Hey guys. Okay, hopefully you guys can hear me. All right. So my name is Paul Chen. I run Greater China for Roblox, and I'm going to take the next few minutes to talk a little bit more about the China opportunity. So Thomas has already identified China as a strategic market for Roblox, but as compared to some of the other strategic markets where we're now ramping up our activity, but there is still a small base of core users. In China, it's essentially untapped. We're starting from scratch, right, in China. And that's for a few reasons. One, we're not in the distribution channels over there. Two, we don't have servers, so performance is a little bit slow, and for some other reasons. But the point is that the China opportunity is really untapped. And so let's go over what the actual opportunity is. Let's see here. Thomas has already gone through some of these stats, but I thought it'd be helpful if he did them side by side with the US so that you get a sense of relative size. So in terms of total population, the number of people in China, there's about 4x the total number of people. In terms of the internet population, these are potential Roblox users, that ratio is a little over 3x. But I think the dynamic to note about China is that China's gone through this really rapid economic expansion over the past 15 plus years. And even next year, most economists think that its GDP will grow around 6% or more. Compare that to the US, where the GDP is forecasted to grow around 2 to 3%, and you get a sense of how much more China's going to grow. So of the 900 million users that have the potential to use Roblox right now, there's a whole bunch more that are waiting on the sidelines, waiting to have access to that. In terms of revenue, making money, so China and the US, they're pretty much head to head. They're both making about $37 billion a year in gaming revenue. But as I said before, GDP is accelerating in China, meaning that there's more household disposable income. And that's all going to be pumped to gaming revenue, meaning that monetization in China is going to be improving over the next few years. And that means more money for you guys. So between more users and more money, that's the opportunity that we have in China. But it's not that easy going into China, because if it's easy, then everybody would be doing it. So what are some of the key challenges that prevent other people from going into China? Well, I mentioned one at the very beginning about distribution channels. In China, Android is the dominant operating system, unlike here where it's iOS. But in China, there's about 40 or so different Android app stores. From Xiaomi to Huawei to Lenovo, there's a whole bunch of different distributed Android app stores. In the US, there's only Google Play. So we have to help our businesses resolve that difference. Then there's unique payment methods. In China, people don't have credit, so they don't have credit cards. They have payment channels called WeChat Pay and Alipay, if you've heard some of those names. So we have to have access to that. Cultural differences, those are obvious. Just the difference between aesthetics, between the way that games and avatars look and feel. That's something to account for. In gameplay, game mechanics in China, people are more accustomed to battle type mechanics, MOBA type mechanics. And then local regulations, we have to account for the fact that if we're going into any country, we have to abide by their local rules and regulations. And China's local rules and regulations just seem to be a little bit more different than some of the other countries that we go into. For example, zombies and skeletons. These are common elements that are found across many Roblox games. But if we look at zombies and skeletons in the context of China, those are symbols of death. And that has some cultural sensitivities associated with that. So in China, those are not allowed. And so what we have to do is make sure that when we enter into that market, that those elements which are culturally sensitive are removed. And how do we do that while ensuring that we have a single code base that still abides by all the different regulations, not just in China, but then in other countries? Well, that's what Shreya and Peter are going to go into a little more detail, and we're going to teach you how we're going to do that through various APIs. But to address all the challenges that we stated earlier, we realized we had to find a local partner. And we spent a lot of time trying to find a great local partner, one that could help us with all the different challenges. And what we've come to is we've found what we think is the best local partner out there, and that's Tencent. Some of you may have seen our press announcement here in the US. Certainly there was a lot of press about it in China. But we partnered with Tencent strategically to do two things. One, we wanted to bring Roblox into China to have their students learn more about coding, about digital citizenship, about game design. And then two, we wanted to bring the Roblox platform into China to be exposed to their user base. And I think that's something that all of us in here can be really, really excited about. And that's the opportunity that we're addressing. But why Tencent? We looked long, we looked hard, we looked at a variety of different partners, so why Tencent? So if you look at what Tencent has done before in the past, they just have had a great track record in bringing very successful games from the West over into China. And not only that, they have this full portfolio of solutions that help to address some of the challenges that we stated earlier. So for example, distribution. Tencent owns both the #1 and #2 social networks in all of China, and WeChat and QQ. In terms of payment methods, Tencent owns the #1 payment method in WeChat Pay. And in terms of getting into all the different Android app stores, Tencent owns more Android app stores and have partnerships with more different with more Android app stores than anybody else. So we really think that Tencent is the right partner to be going into the market with. We're really excited about the opportunity, and we want to bring you guys along for the ride, and we're going to teach you how to come along for the ride, and that's where I'll hand it over to Shreya to talk more about that.
Hey guys, my name's Shreya, also known as Roxy Bloxy, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about a couple things. I'm going to start off by giving you guys a look into Roblox Year-in-Review, everything that we've done to expand into some of these international markets that Paul and Thomas were talking about. I'll also then jump into an intro to our localization tools, and then part 2 of our presentation, me along with Peter, we're going to jump into exactly how to get a full sense of these cloud localization system and how you can localize your games. So up first, I want to give you guys a couple highlights of how we've expanded into these international markets. First, earlier this year in April, we had a huge European launch in France and Germany. And what this means is that we took a bunch of top experiences on the platform and we localized them into French and German. And along with that, we had a huge marketing push so that we could bring more and more users to Roblox and shed some light onto how great all of our experiences are. As we mentioned earlier, we also formed a partnership with Tencent so that we could bring not only the platform and the experiences, but also all of Roblox's educational tools to China. We also put a lot of work into expanding our platform language support. We now support Chinese, both simplified and traditional, Korean, Spanish, German, French, Portuguese, and we also just last week released Japanese support as well. But we also understand this is not a very big list, so we want to be able to provide you guys with the tools so that you can speed on ahead and localize your games into languages beyond just the Roblox official set. So just a few weeks ago, we released support for 45 languages in our cloud localization tools, and these include highly requested languages like Russian and Filipino, Italian, there's a lot more in there, and we've also really set ourselves up to be adding more and more languages to the list. So if there's any languages in there that you guys really want, just let us know and we'll do what we can to get them in there. Also want to do a quick shout out to our developer relations team and our in-house localization experts who took 150 top experiences across the platform and localized them into all 8 of our languages. This really did help our player engagement in some of these international markets. And along with that, another thing that we did was we introduced new international featured sorts. So we really want to be highlighting the devs that are taking the time and the effort to localize their games. So we've included these new sorts that differ on a country-by-country basis to really showcase some of these great games. Last but not least, we also want to highlight the fact that as we expand the international capabilities of our main site, we are also expanding language support to all of our other partner sites. So not only the Roblox Corp website, but also the Dev Hub, the Education Hub, our legal site, and we're also spinning up some international communities on our dev forums to make sure that devs can connect with each other across the world. So we want to make sure that no matter what kind of Roblox content you're looking for, you're always able to find it in your preferred language. So Roblox, we're really doing everything that we can to bring our app to users around the world. We're doing everything we can to make sure that our app is highly performant, that you're getting a great experience no matter where you're connecting from. And we're also doing other things like integrating with local payment providers and social networks that other users prefer to make sure that no matter what your lifestyle or where you are, you're able to get the best experience. But bringing our app to these communities around the world is really only half the battle. Now we want to talk about how you guys can actually come with us on this international journey and how your content can succeed in all of these markets. So when we're thinking about creating localized content, we want to make sure that we really understand the full capacity of what that means. Many of us will probably jump straight into translating in-game content, and while that is a major part and a focus of a lot of our tools, we also want to make sure that we understand it expands to culturalization and being legally compliant in some of these countries. What does culturalization mean? It basically comes down to the fact that different demographics will resonate with your content in different ways. So in order to provide the best experience for them, you might want to adjust some of your content. An example is shown here. with these two different buy buttons. In some cultures, the color red is associated with like affirmative actions and good fortune. So you might opt to change your buy button to red instead of green to maximize the kind of engagement that you'd have. Last but not least, we want to touch compliance. Paul mentioned this earlier. Roblox is one of its #1 priorities is kids' safety. And as we're expanding to some of these markets, these different countries have different regulations on what it means to keep their kids safe online. So we want to make sure that as we're expanding, we're respecting those laws and those regulations, and still providing tools for you guys to make your content available, but also be compliant with their rules. Now, when we're thinking about localizing content, we want to make sure that we're not just honed in to just in-game content. In order to maximize your players' engagement, you want to make sure that you're providing them with the full end-to-end localized experience. So what this means is it's not only in-game, but it would include title and description, also your icons. We currently support those 3 things with our localization tools, and our team is actively working on this quarter to provide other support for thumbnails, and also we're going to be expanding it to all different kinds of developer products, anything that your players might interact with. And coming soon, we're also going to be expanding this to catalog and marketplace items so that you guys can best maximize the potential in all of your different revenue streams.